we're looking more, the Education Committee is going to be serving more of a general Southwest Rochester role. I wanted this time because I was at the Southwest Common Council meeting a couple of weeks ago. Stacy gave a review of a new school proposal, and it sounded like something that it might be nice to look at in terms of School 44. Is there any symbiotic process that can go on here? That was one of the things I wanted, one of the reasons I contacted some of the teachers from 44 for this meeting. Also, I had run across one of the parents at a meeting last week who was from 44, and they hadn't heard anything of what was going on. So I wanted to reach out, and we've talked about it several times in the past that, gee, we're not seeing too many people from 44 coming to these meetings, but apparently you hadn't heard about them. You know, it's with the hope that it can help you at least find out what's going on before.
Sorry, because we're in the update part. So since we do have, I think, one of the only board members who voted against the closing of 44, and we have a bunch of staff here, it'd be very helpful to hear what people at School 44 have heard, and here's something from Mary on what she's heard, or knows, in terms of the closing, potential closing.
Well, I'm not sure how much background to give, but so there was a process last summer by a committee that involved a lot of facilities and administrative people from the district, and also some community members, and they were charged with advising and assisting the engineers and architects with coming up with a district-wide updated master facilities plan. So, there's been many iterations of district-wide planning over the years, from before the time when we first learned that we would get large amounts of facilities modernization funds from the state. So it was time to update that large vision. And so there was this committee that advised people from the district and from the Joint Constructions Board that met last summer. We first viewed that master plan in November 2012, and it had some different contingencies, some different possibilities, but there were some key pieces of information. And this is posted on the website. You can download this large document and look at it. It's been there since last November. 5 buildings were listed as being strong candidates for retirement based on their age, their poor condition, and to some extent the site, the physical site, and how much land was there. And 44 was one of those schools that was of 5 in the whole district that was a strong candidate for retirement because of the condition of the building. So it was there as being a proposed possible or probable closure in the future, but it was in sort of the remote future. So it wasn't really put up front as something, it wasn't really publicized by the district. In the synopsis that the administration put out, they really didn't identify 44 as an immediate closure. So I think that's why there's some of the feeling that, like, all of a sudden they're talking about 44. So that's just some background. So there was a lot of discussion, not as much discussion as there should have been, in my opinion, not as much public discussion as there should have been district-wide, city-wide, neighborhood-wide. But there was a point where we came to a vote in the late winter, early spring, and there was a point of contention around whether to close School 10 or whether there was another school that would be, that was more legitimate target for eventual closure. And so I've been advocating that we should really be looking at schools in the southeast, the other side of the river, where there are very low populations of city school families, or families, actually, school-age children in general. And that we have, historically, for economic and political reasons we can all probably understand, there's been a lot better upkeep of the facilities in the wealthier neighborhoods, even though there's fewer students who use them. So this, in my view, and you know, where I come from, this is an opportunity to establish some equity. So maybe even if some of those buildings are in better condition because of the historical better upkeep, this might be the time to bite the bullet and maybe close one of those schools where there's very few school-age children in the neighborhood. And that would be consistent with our stated desire to encourage more neighborhood school use and to limit transportation and transportation costs. But that was not taken seriously. So we did come to the proposal to close 44, and at first it was again supposed to be in more of a not remote future, but you know, years from now. And then the dialogue shifted, and it was like, well, no later than 2020. And then there became indications that it might be the year after next. But no one would say that for sure. And now through, you know, and again, none of this is in writing, and that's why I voted against the resolution, because there's no firm statement of our best guess or our best expectation. And my view is that it should be further out, and it should be after School 16 is back securely open, which we know is not going to happen immediately because it's not going to be renovated and reopened until phase 2 of the FMP gets underway, which is going to be probably at least 2 years from now.
2 years.
Mary, can you speak to, because I watched the board meeting online when you raised that question, we were Skyping last Monday, and I was a little puzzled by the response that was, and you know, I can't really remember it verbatim, but it was something like, well, this resolution isn't really to close School 44, it's to close the facility. Do you remember that response?
It's to close the building.
But the response was, depending upon, and I can't remember how it was framed, depending upon what happens at School 44, we, the city school district, would find the school another facility. That was the response that was given to you, which didn't make a lot of sense to me, because I know that, well, I don't really know, but it's my understanding that in order to get the Race to the Top money, the state said we had to close 5 facilities. That's one of the reasons
Well,
we're
it's separate
closing.
from Race to the Top. Race to the Top is blackmail in a lot of ways, but that's not one of them.
Okay.
I don't believe.
But isn't there?
But the state has.
Okay, so
yeah.
the state has told the city school district we have to close 5 facilities, so 44 is the last one.
Mm-hmm.
So that didn't make sense to me when I heard that response, and I know it was a lot of, you know, because you were Skyping, it was a different dynamic there.
Right, and I still was trying to press, even
I
from
know,
Skype.
I
but
know.
Yeah.
But I, like, what do you think that response really was saying? Because,
I think they want room to plan based on, you know, we know that we have increasing flow of students into charter schools, so there's always, you know, there's a constant reference to the declining enrollment. And I think they don't want to make a commitment because they want to have maximum flexibility for our resource efficiencies and distribution. But my counterpoint to that is that in order to keep families in the district and in this neighborhood, which is so critical, I mean, in so many ways, we're the neighborhood that is like, you know, public school. It's the perfect public school neighborhood, right? Because we're diverse, we're mixed, we're tight, we have a lot going on. So you really should want to value and keep the 19th Ward and the Southwest in general in the public school system. So that instability and those question marks, you know, if I'm registering my child for kindergarten and you can't tell me whether school's going to close a year after next or 6 years from now, it's a huge difference. I would be willing to register my kids if it was 6 years from now, but not if it's a year from now. I'm not going to plan for instability. So those are the frustrations that I share. And
I have a couple of things. I just wrote down a couple of notes. I'm sure I will not stop talking tonight, but I'll give you my thoughts. For one thing, School 44 is 101 years old. That to me is a landmark building. Why is not Landmark Society involved in that to preserve the history of that building? 101 years, I may never see 101 years in my lifetime, but that building exists and we have to preserve that for our children. Why would they invest money in School 44? We got a brand new boiler, brand new furnace. They updated the school. They put in all kinds of stuff. We got all new computers. I mean, every classroom have a smart board. I mean, you can go on and on and on and on the money. I live in the city, I work in the city, and my children used to go to school in the city. So I have a vested interest in exactly what happens at School 44. You cannot take my tax-paying money, invest it in the school, and then kick me out.
They did the same thing at 16.
Okay, now, for someone who has children who live in the 19th ward, if you close every school in the 19th ward, meaning 44, 16, and 10, you have now disenfranchised a population of people that cannot, where are they gonna go? That is absolutely absurd. And if you look at the historical background of the 19th ward, it is African American based. So now you're totally disenfranchising a particular group of people. That is just unheard of to me. And if they keep doing this, how far are we ever gonna go before it stops? And you have people who can't speak for themselves, and that's why we're sitting here. ELL families, our school for the past 3 years have took on the newcomer program. Why would you put newcomers? I, as an immigrant, myself, I'm not a refugee, but as an immigrant, came to the United States. These people are refugees. They have a newcomer program. 3 years it's been at 44 school. These people were without homes. We have a lot of Somalians and Nepali kids. They lost their homes, they lost everything. You brought them to Rochester. Rochester is a big hub for refugees. We bring them to 44. And now just when they establish and they have their children and all the siblings going to 44, now you now disenfranchise them yet again. So now the only home that they now know in Rochester, now you're kicking them out of 19th ward. Where are we gonna send them? So it's no different than they're refugees there in their country, now they're refugees in Rochester. So that's a problem for me. When you close a school, property values go down. As a homeowner and as a taxpayer in this city, once you close a school in a neighborhood, I know what happens to my house, the resale value. It goes down. And you're telling me you're gonna close 3 schools in the 19th ward. Who's gonna buy a house in the 19th ward if your children can't go here? If my children can't walk to the school next to my house and go to the school next to my house, then why would I live here? So now you're talking about economic downturn. So you're killing the economy of the 19th ward. Is this any different than the 10th ward in Louisiana? I mean, that would be my comparison.
Chicago.
And that's all I'm gonna say right now.
That was wonderful. Look at my thing.
Well, using
Look at my thing.
age as an excuse to close any facility in this community or anywhere else in the United States. Go to Europe and tell them you've got a 101-year-old building and it's past its usefulness. They'll laugh at you. Yeah, their buildings are hundreds of years old, and they keep them running. They're up to date. They put in what they have to keep those facilities in good shape, and they go on and on and on. So to use that as a reason to close a school is ridiculous.
The finances involving facilities. And they did confirm very clearly, unequivocally, that they expect the Rochester City School District to close 5 schools, and we don't have any wiggle room with that. If we want them to 8, because they feel that with declining enrollment and the issues of capacity,
What input
that's
does the
required.
board get from the community though to make these decisions? Because you were the only one that voted not to close 44, and if the board is supposed to be a representation of the community, and a lot of these decisions have been made with not even the staff knowing a lot of what's going on.
Right.
Where does the community's voice Because that's why we have a board. That's why the city school district has a board where the suburban, they go and they vote. So if the board's supposed to be a representation of the community, where is their voice being heard here? And I
Well,
guess,
mean,
I don't know.
there were many forums. I mean, to be honest, there were many
guess I just
forums
wanna know the
and many
mind-
school board meetings where, you know, I wish you had spoken at board meetings. You know, that's the place where
Well,
these
a lot of
voices
times we
need to be
found
heard.
out either the day before, or there wasn't
Right.
enough time for us to prepare, because, you know, we have families, or even our families of our school.
Right.
Just
No,
like
I
this here, I didn't know
understand.
anything about this committee until I received the email, so that's why, you know, people haven't had opportunity to voice. And so I feel like the rights of the community, just speaking for the community, have not, they haven't
And you
been
should go
allowed
and
to
say
share
that
their
at board
concerns.
meetings. You should say that to my colleagues. You really should.
Well,
You
when
really
did-
should. And board meetings, I mean, they're scheduled a year in advance.
But
and I'm not,
1/3 of the
let me
ELF
just say-
families can't come because there's nobody to translate
But
all
you're
of this
here,
to them.
but you're here speaking. So I'm just saying, I'm agreeing with
But
you.
it should be also the responsibility of the board members, if they're representing the community, to also let the community
Right.
know that things are taking place. Just like they
Right.
go around and they want
I
people
know,
to
that's why I
vote for them.
participate in this.
I have
and-
people
We're
now
agreeing with you, Mary.
bombarding me at the door with flyers
No, I
to
know,
vote
I
for
know.
them.
So just
And
I
that's
can tell
when
you
you
one
see and
thing I
hear
did.
about,
I
right.
wrote to each of the schools that I'm the liaison for. Each board member has a number of schools that they're the liaison for, and I'm not the liaison for 44. And I did write a letter to the principal. When I could get contact information for PTO, I wrote to them, and I wrote to the neighborhood associations that were in the vicinity of each of the schools that I'm the liaison for, whether or not they were targeted for closing, and said, please participate in this process. And I did that last November as soon as the plan was released. But it was very disappointing, aside from School 30, which was, you know, targeted for closure and was voted to be closed. There, I spent a lot of time. I went to many meetings. I met with many people. But aside from that, there was not a lot of response to, you know, that explicit. But please don't, so, you know, your voices have been excluded at this point. Now's time to raise your voices on, there's many issues, believe me, to
And
participate
I
with.
appreciate you being
Yeah.
here, but it's sad that you're the only board member here. And
Nor
that-
is she our
it's-
representative.
So
But
I
I
guess
live in the
that's where
neighborhood, so I'm part of this neighborhood.
Right.
So
But
for
who
people-
decided in the state that, I mean, the state level, who are these non-entities? I mean, does Bob Duffy know what's going on? I mean, he's down in Albany, he used to be here. Does he know about these 5 schools closing? He
I'm
does?
sure he did.
Well, who are these people in the state that are making these decisions?
The Department of Education,
Who's the head one there?
the commissioner is John King, and then there's the regents.
John King, K-I-N-G.
Yep, and I mean, if people know Wade Norwood, he's our neighbor, he's a regent.
That's our neighbor.
Reach out to
one of the
Wade
regions,
Norwood.
Right in our neighborhood.
He's a good man, you know, talk to him.
Yeah, but why didn't he tell us about this? At least I didn't read anything.
Well, I mean, this is, the local stuff is local, for the local.
Yeah, but he knew, if I understand you now, Wade Norwood, if he's a rep, did you say?
He's a regent.
He's a regent.
Yeah, one of 8? No, how many are there? 12? There's
many?
more than 5, I think.
He's a regent.
I'm sorry, I'm exposing my ignorance at
No,
however
you
many
can't know
regions there
everything.
are, but there's not very many throughout the whole entire state
Are
So,
they
just
voluntary
to-
positions?
appointed.
They're
Just
appointed.
to interrupt
But
that.
did he let us know anything about
It
it?
wouldn't really be, I wouldn't hold it against him for not talking about local school closings in Rochester.
Well, what does he do then? What's his job?
He's a regent on the state level, so he works with the other regents and engages with the Department of Education to advise them on educational policy.
But he's from here. Isn't he a
Right.
regent from our
Yeah,
area?
the region's focus is not on facilities, it's
Right.
on educational practices
Right.
and the quality of instruction.
Okay, so who concentrates on the facilities?
There's a man named Chuck Saburla who's the,
Oh, wait a minute, you
in
have to spell
Albany,
his
in
name.
Albany though.
Yeah.
I mean, really, we, the board
They don't
and the
get paid,
superintendent
do
here
they?
in Rochester are your targets
The region,
for this
So
stuff.
to interrupt a
like
bit,
Wade.
Sue Burla, is that how you say it?
okay, so.
Okay, Dan has something to say.
So, for everybody who's here, Location 19, John does a fantastic job of keeping things up to date. And we do have the Facebook pages, the RCSD Adequate School Funding page, I mean, we jump off of each other's stuff all the time, and so there's a lot, if you're interested in knowing what's going on, we post when the board meetings are, if you're not on the web, on the RCSD webpage all the time. We have all, on the Positively Southwest Rochester page, all of the board dates are posted as they come up, so you can make all your meetings. So it's a great source of getting information. Now, I do have a favor to ask of everybody who works in the RCSD in Southwest Rochester. We really want to focus this year on the positive things that are going on. We want to come with our video cameras. We want to get school musicals. I had no idea we had the ELL program at School 44. I would have loved to have been able to get some children.
We partnered with the 19th Ward and School 16 to do the spelling bee for the past
For
3
the
years.
spelling bee. And so this year, we're really trying to get a focus on the positive things that are going on, because the news isn't out there. And so when people in the community hear that School 44 is closing, they have no idea.
Well,